Hello YouTube, Big Apple here today with a couple of German pieces of machinery here. We've got the Walther PPQ and the H&K VP9. I've been wanting to do this comparison for a while, so let's jump into it. Both of these are mid-sized German 9mm polymer double stacks. You can also get them in 40. I'm going to be going light on comparing specs. I'm going to focus more on the handling details and shooting qualities. So when I say mid-sized, it means that you got a 15 round magazine, which I'll talk more about later, and usually about a 4-inch barrel. If you compare it to a full size, this is a 45, but still. The frame on this one is a little bit longer, and the barrel is also slightly longer. So these are both considered mid-size. If you have a Glock 19, ever held a Glock 19, these are going to be pretty close to that size too, because they're in the same category. Included in the box, both include two 15-round magazines with back straps. This HK is an LE model, so it came with 3 mags plus True Dot night sights, and I'll show you that in a bit. The Navy PPQ model, which this one isn't, has an extended base plate. You can fit 17 rounds, but the PPQ comes with a factory target, which I've shown you in my previous review. I'll link that. And the VP9 comes with side straps too. So both of them come with 2 magazines. Like I said, this one came with 2 because this is the LE model. You see the night sights there. I'll show you more about that later. But they both come with 15-round magazines. They both come with these changeable back straps here. And you know, there's another 15-round magazine. The VP9 also comes with small and large side panels. So I'm going to show you more adjustability with the grip later. But that is kind of neat. The HK is a little bit more versatile in being able to work with the grip. I think this grip is based on the P30. So if you've seen the HK P30, this is, in my opinion, I think it's based on it. I'm not positive. I'm not an HK rep or anything, but that's where I think it's based. Comparison of features. The weight, HK is an ounce and a half heavier. That's minimal. It really doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm going to be going light on the specs and stuff because you can find those online. These are almost identical in every dimension. So you compare and be like, oh my God, they're so close, but I'm going to be talking about other stuff. Disassembly, both are simple. The Walther doesn't have to be locked back, and the VP9 trigger must be pushed forward to reassemble, which I thought was strange. So here's disassembly. PPQ, you have to decock the trigger, and then you have these little tabs here, very Glock-like, so you just pull it back, and there you go, it's off. And then put it back on. Very simple, ready to go again. VP9, similar to a lot of other pistols where you lock it back, rotate this lever, pull it forward, pull the trigger, and there you go, in 2. Now, what's strange to me is when I was trying to put it back together, see, it gets to this point, it doesn't go anywhere. If you hold down the trigger though, it does. And that makes it go back where it was. I guess it has, I don't know, it's got something to do with the striker maybe. But I noticed that when I was trying to put it back together, it was a little bit difficult. It was giving me resistance until I pushed that trigger in, and then that made it go back on. So it is what it is. Slide finish. Both only available in black, but they're very nice finishes on both. I'm not sure what the treatment is on here, the metal treatment. It feels like Tenifer, feels like melanite. So if you shot a, what you call it, an M&P, if you shot an XD, if you shot a Glock, they pretty much feel about the same. They're both really good. I don't think you'd ever have any corrosion issues. Serrations. Both have forward and rear serrations. Both are pretty good. I prefer the HKs a little bit. The VP9 also has 2 small bumps to aid slide grip. I'm not sure if they helped or got in the way, but I guess it was kind of easier. Maybe if I look back more on the footage, I think it'll make it, I'll think that it made it easier. And both have serrations on the top. So this is what I'm talking about with here. It's really the first pistol I've seen have you know, these little bumps out here, which I had my biases at first. I'm like, oh, that's stupid. It won't do much. It does help a little bit. It's not that huge of a difference. You should be, you know, gripping every pistol the same anyway. But I felt that definitely did aid. With the PPQ, same thing, forward and rear serrations. It doesn't have those little bump out pieces like on the VP9, so it is missing out a little bit there, but it still wasn't difficult to work with these. And just because the Walther doesn't have those bumps doesn't mean that these serrations aren't usable. They're both very good serrations. I just think that these have a little bit sharper edges, a little bit more coarse on the hands, but then again, that might be a good thing for you. So I think this has a little bit more flexibility with those little bumps in the back and everything, but For the most part, their serrations are pretty much the same. You know, they both have serrations along the top too. If you look at it here, I'm not sure if it's like designed to, I don't know, reduce glare or something. But see, this got this little bumped up piece, and then this one also has a little bumped up piece, but it's got little cuts in it. So you know, it's got some texturing there. Sights, well, this is really where the Walther falls short, and this is kind of a really big one for me. Walther sights are really bad. They're polymer, there's a shallow rear aperture, there's a tiny front blade, the dots aren't recessed, but the rear is adjustable and has a shelf for one-handed racking. So yeah, it does have that hard shelf there, you can do that, but this is a plastic sight, so you'd have to worry about breaking it off. You see how short that front blade is. The dots are also super small, and that rear aperture is just so shallow. I don't know, it's not as confidence inspiring, and it does take a little bit to get these lined up because it's just not very deep when you compare it to like the VP9s, which I'll read the details in a second. See, this has a much deeper rear aperture, and that front sight is a little bit taller. So the sights, easily the VP9 wins. The VP9s are better. The standard sights are luminescent and the dots aren't recessed, which I don't like non-recessed dots, but regardless, this has a hard rear shelf too. They're more durable than the Walthers. This VP9 shown is the LE model, and it has night sights. But yeah, these are just better. You see, there's the hard shelf, and you see these are metal. That's a metal sight. That's a metal sight. Yeah, these are the night sights, so these don't get as much of a gripe. I don't like dots that aren't recessed. What do you mean non-recessed? I'm sure y'all are thinking. Look at the dots on the M&P. You see how they're recessed, they're sunk in? That's so if you scratch the sights on something, the dots won't rub off. Well, these dots just right on the top. So if you took a piece of sandpaper and did this, they'd be gone. I don't know why you'd put sandpaper to it, but I'm illustrating a point here. Those dots could easily rub off on pretty much anything. With the night sights, obviously a little more difficult because they're sort of recessed, but sort of not. The luminescent tubes are in there, but they're on the top. But like I said, the VP9 standard sights are luminescent. They're not luminescent, meaning you stick them up to a light and they'll glow after you've had them up to a light. The night sights are, you know, will just glow in the dark anyway, but they're not recessed. The standard sights are not recessed. I don't like that, but I do like that the VP9s are metal. That's a huge plus, and I do like that the rear aperture gives a much better sight picture. Walther slide is a bit tall. I kind of prefer the boxy shape of the VP9. The Walther also has a shorter sight radius. The VP9s is a little bit longer. Is it by much? No, not really. It probably wouldn't make that big of a difference when you're actually shooting too. You see the VP9 slightly longer sight radius. And like I said, I like the boxy shape of the VP9 better. It's just a little bit easier to line up the sights. You know when to stop. The Walther's like little short taper. This could also be subjective, but the Walther's little short taper for me took a little bit more time for me to get on target. So yeah, that makes the sights a little easier to find. Barrel, both are 4 inches. The VP9s is barely longer. Maybe it's 4.1 or 4.05, but essentially they're 4 inches. Walther you can get in a 5-inch, but this is the 4-inch model. Both are forged barrels and have good feed ramps, and both have matched serial number to slide to frame. I said this in the Walther review. I think that's awesome. The serial number here, here, and here all match on this one. Same thing with the Walther, here, here, and on the frame as well right there. I really like that because it shows you that they're actually putting together this gun. They're not just taking a parts bin. They're making sure that the fitment is really good. So maybe that's just a German thing. Maybe they have to do that. I don't know. I could be wrong. But to me, it's more confidence inspiring. My Beretta's the same way, so maybe it is a European thing. But my, my American M&P 1911 Ruger guns all just have the serial number on the frame. So that's just one thing I noticed. I think that's pretty cool. It may or may not be a big deal, but I like that. And both of them are forged, have a really good feed ramp. You see the feed ramp in there. You know, it's just like any other good 9mm feed ramp. Same thing with this one, really good feed ramp. So I don't have any complaints with the barrels. They're both really good. Both have chamber indicators on their extractors, but in different spots. The Walther extractor is also larger. So these don't have loaded chamber indicators on the barrel itself or anywhere here, but it is built into the extractor. So if you look at this, when I push this thing in, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little bit of red that pops up in the back corner. There you go, now you can see it. See that red? So that is basically your chamber indicator on this. When the extractor is, grabbing a case in here, it's gonna push that back, you're gonna see that red. The VP9s is a little bit different, but it is on the extractor too. So when you pull it back here, you see the red there? So this one's on the front, on the extractor, and on the PPQs, it's in the back and in the slide. So slightly different. Do they both really matter? I don't really think so. I mean, you should know if your gun's loaded or unloaded anyway. It's not nearly as dramatic as like my Ruger here, loaded went up. It's not big and pop out like that. And it's not a window like my M&P. So it just varies. You might like it, you might not, but regardless, you'll know if there's a round in there because you can see the red. The guide rod, the VP9's a steel, the Walther's is polymer. This is usually the steel wins out, and I think it kind of does here too. You see nice steel guide rod. They are both captured too. I forgot to mention that they're captive. So see, this is put together, not going to fall apart. Captive guide rod there. So that's pretty good. And I pretty much always favor a steel guide rod just because I think it's going to have better longevity. I could be completely off base on that. Maybe a polymer one does have a little bit more, I don't know, a little more adjustability, a little more flexibility, especially since this one has some cutouts in it that might help make dirt and grit not get stuck in it as well. So you see, it's got like little ridges in there. But it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't have the durability feel of that steel one. Everything on it, it just kind of, it feels a little bit cheap. Not that there were any issues with the gun. You'll see that both ran fine, but I think the guide rod, the HK's, is a little bit better than this one. So it is what it is. I won't know that until these have been shot a lot, neither are my guns. So I do know that Walther's seen a lot more rounds than the VP9. It's seen a few thousand, and the guy said he's loved it. So the owner of it has been pleased. Both have dehorn corners and are smooth. At the muzzle, the VP9 is a little more streamlined. So you see that neither of them have hard edges, hard corners. The Walther's is a little bit flatter on the front though. You see how there isn't a whole lot of tapering. The corners are dehorned, but you look at this one, see it's tapered up front. So this one might be a little bit easier to get into a holster, to get in and out of a holster because of that. You know, you can just get it back in quicker, but neither of them have any hard edges. That's not anything you're gonna have to worry about. They shouldn't tear up your hands. They're both really good. So here are just some general things too. VP9 has a striker indicator, the Walther does not. VP9 spring is blued, the recoil spring, I showed you that. Walther's is bare, and both have roll mark logos on the slide. So roll marking as opposed to laser etching. See PPQ in there and you see VP9 in there. So that's aesthetic. Like I said, the spring on this one is blued. So the recoil spring in here, you see is actually blued. It's got a finish on it. Or maybe it's just oiled, I'm not really sure, but it's not bare and coarse feeling like the one on the PPQ. The one on the PPQ just doesn't inspire quite as much confidence. You see how the spring's just bare right there. So like I said, that's really more a personal subjective thing. I don't think either of them are really going to mess up. That's just a thing I've noticed. VP9 has a striker indicator. You can see it right here. See the little red dot, and then it disappears, and then you reset and it comes back. See it right there. So this has it. Walther does not. It is what it is. Onto the frame. Both have a 1911-esque grip angle, which is a huge win. I actually have my 1911 here, so if you compare it, it's got a little bit more of a bump out, yes, but the grip angle is very, very similar. It's essentially the same grip angle. It's not exaggerated like a Glock. Is the main thing I'm trying to compare here. So both of them have a very natural feel. They're not overly exaggerated. They fit in your palm very well. They're both really good, and I'm used to the 1911 grip angle. All my other guns have it, so that's a plus. Both have excellent grips. The VP9 does give you a little bit more adjustability with the side panels though. So both grips, extremely comfortable. I have no problems with either grip. Both very, very good, both very, very comfortable. But the VP9, like I said, it does have these changeable side panels here. See this piece? I think the medium's on here right now. I didn't swap any out. But with these little side panels, you can get some more adjustment by changing those. These stick out a little bit farther. These are probably the large. So really, you can make this thing fit your hand like an absolute glove. I have no problem with the medium-sized one. It feels pretty damn good to me. So this grip gets an edge for adjustability, but I think the PPQs is still really good. So that's kind of a, I don't know, I guess a subjective thing. Both require a punch to remove the roll pin to change the back straps. Why? I don't like that. I complained about that in the Walther review, but I think it might be because both allow for a lanyard loop. No civilian will ever use this. This must be a European thing. So you see both have the hole in the back for a lanyard loop. You can hook it on right there. Same thing here. You can hook it on right there. So both require the roll pin to be punched out to change the back strap. It's not easy like on my Ruger here. You just slide that one out. It's not easy like on my M&P where you just rotate this and pull it out. No, you have to have a punch to punch it out to change the back strap, and I don't really like that. But I guess they couldn't make the lanyard loop any other way. They had to make sure it was durable. So I guess I understand where they're coming from. But regardless, I'm not huge on that. So it's probably a European thing. I might just be harping on it too much, but I don't like that. Grip surface check string is nearly identical on both. The VP9 is slightly more aggressive, but not by much. You see like the little cuts into them and all the little markings. They look almost exactly the same. I guess you could say that this has a little bit more LPI, a little bit more lines per inch. But both tech strings inspire a lot of confidence. I guess the Walthers might be slightly slippier, but I don't know. To me, I don't really care. I think they're both pretty good, and I think really it's just which grip you prefer is really where you need to be looking. Slide stop. The VP9 had a lot of slide lock failures. It failed to lock back about 75% of the time. Follower does not push on the slide lever hard enough. So here's some of the runs I did. You can see that it just, I don't know, it's like there wasn't enough tension on it. I thought it might have had to do with the positioning of my thumb, so I got somebody else to try it too, and it was kind of having those same issues. So it was pretty consistent, even with Winchester white box, even with my reloads, even with some other factory stuff, pretty consistent. I think it has to do with this. You see when I put the magazine here in this empty frame, the slide stop really doesn't, it's not that exaggerated. It doesn't really come up that high. You know, I'm not sure what exactly was causing that, but it definitely wasn't me. I mean, my pistol shooting is pretty sound, I would think. I've been shooting for a while, so I don't think that's it at all. But like if you compare it to the Walthers, the Walther has no issues with slide lock. You see when that's in there, it's pushing up on it quite a bit. It always engages it. So I guess it has something to do with the follower engagement on the slide stop. But regardless, this also illustrates a good point that any gun can have issues. It doesn't matter if it's H&K, Walther, Smith & Wesson, Glock, Taurus, or any of those. Of course, you're going to see more problems on some than others, but regardless. Yeah, so I had a lot of issues with slide lock on that, but regardless, there are your facts. That's how it was. That's how I saw it. That's the facts there. So the Walthers engages on the outer edge of the slide, the VP9 on the inside. Both are ambidextrous, but only the Walthers levers are symmetrical, and they're a little bit larger. So this engages on the inside of the slide, but these slide levers aren't symmetrical either. So yeah, it's ambi. But you see this one's shaped differently over here. See that? This one's actually a little bit longer. This one's shorter, farther back, and it's a little bit different. So I like that they made it ambi. I mean, they could have gone a little bit farther to try to make them look the same, but you know, I'm not a pistol designer, so that might not be something they were capable of doing. See, the Walther's got really, really big ones, and see, they're symmetrical. They're the same on both sides, which is cool. Neither of them, I think, protrude out that much. I guess this one might protrude out a little bit more than the VP9s. These might be a little bit more low profile, but both were good. I wish the H&K would have locked back a lot, but you know, it is what it is. I think that's probably just this specific one. I doubt it's for all of them. Accessory rail, the VP9 has one extra notch. You get a little more flexibility. The VP9 keeps the frame and tapering up front, while the Walther's very flat. So you see that this rail has an extra notch here, and you see how even the rail itself, the front of the frame, is actually tapered. Walther's is still super flat, and it's got 3 notches instead of 4, so you get a little bit less adjustability. But if you want to put a lighter laser on either of these, they're both going to be able to accept it just fine. You're not going to have any issues. So that's something I wouldn't worry about. Magazine release. The VP9s is ambi, and it's slowly become easier for me. The original Walthers actually had a little paddle release like this, but the M2 has a standard button. The button's still really good, but it's just not as good as the paddles. So I actually got pretty used to this one. It's sort of like any other ambi mag release. I eventually find myself just using my trigger finger. So I'll shoot, go to empty, boom, and I hit it with my trigger finger here instead of my thumb, because see, I have to go a lot farther for that. The Walthers is still really good. I mean, it's a very, very easy to reach. I really don't have to go very far. It's just I'm using my thumb instead of my trigger finger. So I kind of started to prefer this one, but either way, they're both going to be really good for you. Both have excellent magazine ejection. I think the Walther has a slight edge. It has the best magazine ejection of any pistol I've seen. It doesn't matter if it's locked back or whatever, but I mean, it comes out of there so easily. I think that has really, really good mag ejection, best I've seen. VP9 has a small cutout on the mag well to rip out a mag if a failure occurs, but the Walthers can still be grabbed, and the Walther magazines have red followers. I talked in my previous Walther review about the red followers. I like that you can see immediately when it locks open that it's actually empty. I don't know why more manufacturers don't make their followers colored, but regardless. So this one doesn't have a little ridge in here to rip out a mag if you have a failure, but it still has enough room for you to get a purchase on it. This one's is just a little bit better, because see how it kind of goes in there and the base plate sticks out a little bit. So it is what it is, but both magazines are good. I didn't have any issues with feeding. Both of them fed just fine. Trigger guard, both are large and flat on the front. So both are large, can fit gloved hands, probably just fine. See right there, both are pretty big, and both are flat on the front. So if you need to prop up against something for whatever reason, you wouldn't have an issue there. I think both of those are just fine. So the trigger, this is what y'all really want to hear about. The PPQ's trigger is better. I mean, just straight up, it's better. Both are advertised at a little over 5 pounds, but the VP9's is definitely heavier. I think the VP9's is probably more like 6 or 6.5. VP9's trigger has a better and wider face, also shorter take-up. Both have a predictable wall, though. They both feel kind of like a 2-stage trigger, and they break cleanly, but Walther's reset is better. So, of these triggers, I like the shape of this one more. It's got a more flat front. You see, here's your take-up and your brake. And this is the reset they claim is good, but it's not very good. You can kind of hear that it's mushy. And it's, I don't know, the reset isn't very great on this. The brake is pretty good. It brakes clean. There's a short take-up, but the reset's not good. So Walther's trigger's better pretty much in every way, except that the face of it isn't huge. So see, the face of it's still pretty big though, but it's sort of like, I looked on the inside too, it's kind of like a 2-stage trigger in that the striker sort of is pre-cocked. So when you pull this here, you have a predictable wall. You know exactly when it's going to break. You get to there, see how short that is, and then your reset, it jumps out at you. It like assists you going forward. It makes it really, really easy. So this has a better trigger. It's lighter too. This one's a little bit heavier. PPQ's trigger, I would easily take over the VP9. So if that's the main thing that you're buying for, if you want to get one that's very shootable with a good trigger, I would go with that one easily. But this one's still pretty good. And these are general things here too. Neither have a beaver tail, but both of them have a big enough overhang that's sufficient so you won't mess up your hands. Neither have a thumb safety or mag disconnect safety, which is awesome. Keep it simple. Simplicity win. And magazine can't be inserted in the VP9 unless the takedown lever is flat. I didn't really understand this. There's just one thing I noticed when I was trying to figure out what was going on with that slide release. If this lever here is down, you can't get the magazine in. But when it's up, you can. So I doubt that matters very much. But you know, it's still something I noticed when I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on with this slide lock. So just something to note there. Neither of them have a beaver tail, but the overhang's big enough to where it's not like a Glock, so you can get a good grip. That's what I mean by overhang, where it sits over the back of your hand. It doesn't have a beaver tail like my M&P here. See how that kind of sticks off a little bit. Regardless, they're both good there. Price, the Walther's about $550, H&K's around $575. This is kind of an average online price I saw. Both of them are still very affordable. I think they're great for what you get. Both are great values. So shooting impressions. The PPQ has a sharper recoil impulse, and I was surprised that a female complained because I thought this is a really good gun for females. She may have been recoil sensitive too, so I doubt it's entirely that, but it is what it is. The VP9 handles recoil very well. I found that surprising. PPQ's sight picture is awful. VP9's is pretty good. Reloads are smooth on both, but they're a little easier on the VP9 because of those paddles. It's easier to be accurate with the VP9, but the Walther's not far behind, and both fed and ejected reliably, but the VP9 had the mag lock issue. So I think the magazine lock issue is probably the specific gun. I doubt they're all that way. If you've heard the term of a lemon, just one that gets out that's not good, that's kind of what I think's going on here. I don't think that all VP9s are going to have issues with slide lock. Maybe it is a more recurring issue that I don't know about. I haven't researched it a bunch, but even with the mag inserted in here, you see if I move it slowly, it'll have difficulty sometimes. It's like you have to kind of pound it against the back to get it to lock. So I don't know, maybe with hotter ammo it'd be more reliable. I don't know. I'm just calling it like I see it. That's what I saw and that's what happened. And I was showing you all the footage. It is what it is. I felt the VP9 was a little easier to be accurate with. I think a lot of it had to do with the slide shape in those sights. The sight picture is just a lot cleaner on it. I don't like that on the PPQ here. I think these would be pretty easily changeable, and I would highly advise you do that if you get it, unless you're not that experienced of a shooter. If you just shoot occasionally, those will probably suit you fine, but I didn't find those sights to be very good. These are really good. So overall, here's the notable things that I could see about either one. PPQ's got a better trigger, VP9 has a better sight picture. The VP9 has a better magazine release, which is subjective, and like I said, the first Walther PPQs actually did have the ambidextrous paddle on either side. So if you can find one of those, then all things are equal there. VP9 grip has more adjustability. The VP9 handles recoil better. And personally, I think the VP9 edges out this comparison for me, despite thinking the PPQ would. The PPQ's trigger is easily better than the VP9's, but I found that the VP9 slide shape, the sight picture, and the recoil impulse being pretty soft made it edge out this comparison. So I don't think the mag lock issue, the slide lock issue is all of them. I think it's just this gun. So take it for what it's worth, but those are my findings. I would take this one slightly over this one. Mainly the sight picture is my biggest complaint with the PPQ. So this is Big Apple. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, post in the comments.